The same thing we did yesterday, but instead of sine, we're going to talk about cosine. So that's the only change that we've got on deck for today. So again, just like yesterday, I am going to think of these, and if you're not on this page, make sure you go to the one where it says cosine at the top. I'm going to think of these as my x values. So these are going to be the ones I graph for my x values in a minute. And then these are going to be the best ones to look at for y values because they're going to be my decimal equivalents of what all the spaces are. So I'm just going to highlight it pink in preparation for the fact that this will be what I look at for my y values. So what goes in this part. Okay. So we are going to graph y equals cosine x. And we're not going to use our Chromebooks for the first one. We're going to use just our unit circle. So let's start at 0. What's my cosine at 0? 1. And again, the decimal equivalent would just be 1. Oh yeah, thank you. I see that now too. This should say cosine here. Sorry. I see that. This should say cosine as well. Thank you. Good call. You were like, wait a second. It says it correctly at the top, but then you're right, in the box it does not. Okay, go to pi over 4. What's your cosine? Root 2 over 2. And we know what decimal is that? 0.707. Okay, next, go to pi over 2. What's your cosine? 0. Decimal equivalent, still 0. 3 pi over 4. Negative root 2 over 2, so negative 0.707. What about pi? What's my cosine? Negative 1. 5 pi over 4. Negative root 2 over 2 again. 3 pi over 2. 0. 7 pi over 4. Yep, root 2 over 2. And you should have this where you're like, I've seen these numbers before. Yep, you have. 2 pi, full revolution. 1. And then 1 spot after in terms of pi over 4. So basically we're back to 45 degrees. What am I there again? Yeah. Remember, when you graph, you have to graph through at least one period of the graph. Now, yesterday I was kind of struggling to get everything in, so I don't think I'm going to write them all in today. I think I'm going to go pi over 2 and know that I'm actually counting by pi over 4s. But I'm going to do, I'm trying to think back to when my kids were in school, would you guys call it skip counting? So I'm going to skip the pi over 4 and just go to pi over 2, skip, and then go to pi. Does that make sense? So I'm still going to count by the same thing I did yesterday. I'm just writing fewer of them in, so that way it doesn't get quite as jumbled as it was yesterday. Because I feel like when you try to write all those in, it gets a little wild. So skip this one, and this would be 5 pi over 2. And again, remembering that we can also count negative. Let's see, we were skip counting though, so this would be negative pi over 2 here. Okay. The highest I go is what? 1. The lowest I go is what? Negative 1. Okay. Let's start graphing. At 0, I'm at positive 1. So 0, 1 is a point on my graph. At pi over 4, which is the next spot over, I'm at 0.707. So I'm like here-ish. Where am I for pi over 2? 0. Then the next one over, I'm at negative 0.707. At pi, I'm at negative 1. Then I'm at negative 0.707 again. And at some point, can you see the pattern, and do we even really need, like, I'm not even going to look at the chart, right? Like, I know what's next. What's next? What has to be next? 0. And then what do you know it's going to go up to? It's 0.707. And then 1. And then 0.707 again. So then we're going to draw in our graph. And again, I'm not going to ask you to make a ton of these on the homework, so again, we're doing a nice job on it. And if we're not, it's not full credit, because I'm not giving you a ton of these. Okay, so I've drawn through at least one cycle. Whoops, pretend this actually went through the point, though. Let's make that look a little bit better, shall we? And I was about to go through the exact same spot. There we go. It's because I didn't use sound effects the first time. There we go. That looks better. Okay. Minimum. What's the lowest point on your graph? Maximum. What's the highest point? Domain. All real numbers. It's going to snake left and right and go to everything. Range is pretty small. What does it range in between? -1 and +1. Where does it touch the y-axis? This one's different from yesterday. 1 comma, or not 1, but 0 comma 1. Yep. Okay, let's think about where our zeros are. So we're going to make a list, and then we're going to make a statement like we did yesterday. So where do you see a 0? Pi over 2. 3 pi over 2. We didn't, oh yeah, we did keep going. Probably 5 pi over 2 would be next, yes? Okay. So how far apart are these spaced? What did I add to get from here to here? I added 2 pi over 2. So do you agree to get from here to here, I added 2 pi over 2? Okay. What is 2 pi over 2 really? Just pi, right? Okay. So here's how we write it. Are you ready to be fancy? Pi over 2 plus pi n, where n exists in the set of integers. So pi over 2 is where we started, so I can give a starting spot, and then we continue to add. And then remember, integers also include negative numbers, so I could also subtract and go the other way. Yes? Let me move that up a little bit because I see some people like kind of craning their neck to see. Frequency we're not going to do, so it's okay that I wrote over that one. Amplitude, though, I want to talk about amplitude. Amplitude is still the value in front of your sine or cosine. What's my value in front of cosine? 1. And the period is always 2 pi over what's in front of x. What's in front of x? 1. So 2 pi divided by 1 is just 2 pi. So let's do a side-by-side for a second. I'm going to put yesterday's back up. Do you notice a lot of similarities? What's different between the sine and the cosine graph? So this one is your sine. The y-intercept is different. What else? The zeros. Is anything else different? No. So these graphs are very similar in the values that they go through. The only difference is going to be like when they go through those values. Okay? So it's more of a question of when. All right, we're going to do another one, but the next one we're going to do is going to be on our Desmos. So we already did this one. So skip ahead, skip to number 2. All right, let's do the amplitude first. The amplitude is the number out front. What's my amplitude? 1. My period is always 2 pi divided by what's in front of theta. What's in front of theta? 3. So 2 pi over 3 is my period, and I'm going to actually leave it as a weird fraction. All right. Let's go to our Desmos and let's get this. Ooh, I'm throwing papers on the ground. Let's go to our Desmos and let's get this typed in. All right, so we've got cosine of 3 theta. Oh, I'm just going to ignore that. This Chromebook looks disgusting. All right, so here we are. I need cosine, so I'm going to type COS for cosine. And then I'm going to put a space because I like to do that. And then I'm going to put a parenthesis because that makes me feel good inside as well. And then I'm going to put 3x. So cosine, remember the other thing you can do is you can go to the keyboard icon and click on that, and you can click on cosine under functions. So that's another option. Okay, let's find some points on our graph. 0, 1 is a point. Okay, so and then let's go to the next one. Let's see what we're counting by. Ooh. My next point is pi over 6. Do you see that? Okay, so I'm counting by pi over 6s. This one's pi over 3. Okay, so go back to the first one. We have a point at 0, 1. So this is my positive one. This is my negative one. And then if I go over, I have a point at pi over 6, comma 0. So the next point is at 0. And then my next point is at pi over 3, comma, negative 1. All right. I know I've used decimals a little bit. Do I actually need it anymore, probably? No. Where's the next point going to be? 0. Where's the next point going to be? 1. Where's the next point going to be? 0. Where's the next point going to be? And then let's do one more. 0. Now, as long as you start to show me what you're counting by, you don't have to count all the way through. I've been doing that more so that you can kind of get comfortable with working with pies, because I feel like working with pi versus just regular numbers is kind of a transition. And so as long as you start and show me what you're counting by, I'm good with that. You don't have to count all the way through. Does that make sense? But at least give me a couple so I know that you know what you're counting by. All right. Do we think we can do homework? Okay, are you ready for a